the snowy landscape, the weather was clear. Dark days were coming. Cold compressed life into wood and smoke, testing heat retention and fuel limits medieval. Winter survival began with forests determining building size possibilities locally, shaping labor demands, transport limits, seasonal cutting cycles, and long-term sustainability for medieval rural households everywhere. Soil frost limited foundations, forcing shallow wooden structural solutions everywhere, as frozen ground resisted digging, increased labor, delayed construction, and constrained durability during prolonged winter seasons. Cold air infiltration made wall thickness critical for heat retention, as gaps accelerated convection, increased fuel consumption, and forced heavier material use under persistent winter pressure. Logs were squared imperfectly, creating gaps requiring secondary sealing methods, as hand tools limited precision, encouraging moss, clay, straw, or dung, packing against winter airflow loss. Clay daub slowed airflow, but cracked as timbers shrank seasonally, requiring repeated maintenance, patching, and acceptance of gradual heat leakage throughout long freezing months each year. Low ceilings reduced heated volume, conserving scarce firewood resources during winter, as smaller airspaces warmed faster, retained heat longer, and limited vertical heat stratification losses. Single-room layouts centralized heat, while increasing smoke exposure indoors, forcing tolerance of irritation, reduced air quality, and long-term respiratory strain as trade-offs for winter survival. Roof pitch shed snow, preventing collapse under accumulated winter weight, while minimizing structural stress, reducing repair needs, and preserving interior volume against seasonal storms and thaw. Thatch insulation trapped air, yet absorbed moisture from melting snow, increasing rot risk, added weight, and requiring careful roof angles and frequent replacement across cold seasons. Wooden shingles lasted longer, but transferred cold more efficiently inward, reducing insulation performance, increasing reliance on interior fires, and raising fuel consumption during extended winter periods. Stone foundations moderated temperature swings through thermal mass effects slowly, absorbing daytime warmth, releasing stored heat overnight, stabilizing interiors against sharp freezes, thaws, and sudden cold. Ground contact floors drew heat away, demanding constant hearth fires, as frozen soil acted like a heat sink, increasing fuel use, labor, and nighttime vulnerability indoors. Packed earth floors reduced drafts, but increased dampness underfoot continually, promoting cold, mold, discomfort, and long-term timber decay when moisture accumulated during extended winter occupancy periods. Raised wooden platforms insulated sleepers from frozen ground temperatures below, positioning bodies within warmer air layers, reducing conductive heat loss overnight, despite limited bedding materials available. Central hearth placement balanced heating efficiency against fire risk constantly, ensuring warmth radiated evenly, while sparks, embers, and collapse hazards remained manageable within confined wooden interiors. Open fires consumed oxygen, requiring controlled ventilation openings to function, balancing airflow, smoke removal, and heat retention, while preventing suffocation during long winter nights indoors safely. Smoke holes sacrificed heat to prevent suffocation indoors during sleep, creating continuous tension between warmth, breathable air, and energy loss throughout freezing nights each winter season. Winds dictated doorway orientation, reducing direct airflow penetration during storms, while limiting drifting snow, conserving interior heat, and improving survival during prolonged winter gales and blizzards. Small entrances minimized heat loss, but constrained daily movement inside, forcing crouching, slowing tasks, and increasing wear on door frames during repeated winter entries and exits. Wood doors warped seasonally, creating gaps despite careful fitting efforts, allowing drafts, moisture, and cold infiltration, demanding frequent adjustment, repairs, or added insulation each winter cycle. Animal hides added insulation when timber planks remained unavailable locally, repurposing agricultural byproducts to block drafts, retain warmth, and extend shelter performance through harsh winter months. Windows were rare, reducing heat loss while limiting daylight access, increasing reliance on firelight, shortening productive hours, and reinforcing seasonal rhythms of winter confinement indoors daily. Oiled cloth window coverings admitted light, but leaked cold constantly, offering compromise between visibility, ventilation, and insulation, while remaining fragile, smoky, and short-lived under winter use. Human body heat supplemented fires, especially during nighttime confinement periods, as shared spaces, proximity, and reduced movement allowed metabolic warmth to accumulate within small cottages slowly. Shared sleeping reduced exposed surface area, conserving warmth through contact, while reinforcing social bonds, mutual dependence, and collective endurance during long, dark winter nights indoors together. Wool bedding trapped air, yet absorbed moisture from respiration overnight, requiring drying, airing, or rotation to prevent chilling, mildew, and heat loss across successive winter nights. Straw mattresses insulated cheaply, but harbored pests and mold frequently, increasing discomfort, illness, odors, and maintenance burdens within confined winter living quarters over extended seasons annually. Clothing layers functioned as mobile insulation indoors during winter months, allowing movement, work, and rest without constant fire proximity, though increasing wear, moisture, and laundering demands. Daily fuel demands shaped work rhythms around fire maintenance continually, structuring, chopping, hauling, drying, and storage tasks across daylight, weather, and seasonal labor constraints each winter. Firewood scarcity limited burn rates, extending cold exposure throughout winter, forcing conservative heating, heavier clothing, and acceptance of discomfort to preserve supplies until spring arrived again. Green wood smoked heavily, reducing efficiency and indoor air quality, increasing irritation, soot, and respiratory strain, yet remaining unavoidable when dry fuel supplies were exhausted locally. Ash accumulation insulated embers, prolonging usable heat output over night periods, reducing morning relighting effort, conserving fuel, and smoothing temperature drops during the coldest hours before dawn. Fire tending demanded constant attention, preventing prolonged absence from home, tying inhabitants to interiors, limiting travel, and reinforcing winter immobility during severe cold spells each season. Cooking overlapped heating, maximizing energy use from limited fuel supplies, as boiling, baking, and simmering contributed warmth, reducing wasted heat during daily food preparation in winter. Food preservation reduced cooking frequency, conserving firewood reserves during winter, allowing hearths to burn lower, longer, and more predictably, balancing nutrition, warmth, and survival across scarcity. Salted foods increased thirst, complicating water management indoors during freezing, as melted supplies dwindled, containers iced over, and hearth heat was diverted to maintain drinkable reserves. Water froze quickly, necessitating proximity to hearth warmth for storage, increasing clutter near fires, raising spill risks, and competing for limited interior space during daily winter routines. Condensation formed on walls, increasing rot risk within poorly ventilated cottages, as warm, moist air met cold timber surfaces, accelerating decay and weakening integrity over time. Ventilation balanced moisture removal against precious heat loss through openings, forcing careful adjustment of shutters, vents, and smoke holes to avoid suffocation or excessive interior chilling. Structural repairs occurred in winter, preventing drafts from worsening under snow, ice, and wind. Despite limited daylight, stiff materials, numbed hands, and slower work pace conditions. Interior tools stored indoors, reducing metal brittleness from cold exposure, preserving functionality, preventing cracking, and ensuring readiness for immediate use during winter maintenance and household emergencies. Livestock shelter proximity added heat, but increased sanitation problems indoors, introducing odors, moisture, parasites, and disease risks as animals shared walls or adjacent living spaces closely. Manure layers generated warmth through slow decomposition processes near stalls, contributing minor heat gains, while increasing dampness, odors, labor, and daily management burdens indoors during winter. Rodent intrusion followed warmth, threatening stored grain supplies inside cottages as mice exploited gaps, insulation, and food caches, forcing vigilance, repairs, and constant monitoring throughout winter. Elevated storage reduced losses, but required additional construction effort and materials, increasing labor, timber consumption, and structural complexity within already constrained winter household resource systems overall. Limited daylight compressed waking hours, shaping winter productivity within cottages, prioritizing essential tasks near fires while reducing non-essential labor during prolonged seasonal darkness periods each year. Nighttime extended inactivity, conserved energy and fuel simultaneously during winter, as reduced movement lowered caloric demand and allowed hearth fires to burn slower through long nights. Social clustering reduced individual heat loss within confined indoor spaces, concentrating body warmth while sacrificing privacy, comfort, airflow, and increasing shared exposure to smoke and illness. Illness spread more easily indoors, complicating survival under winter confinement, as close quarters, smoke irritation, poor ventilation, and weakened nutrition reduced resistance to infection over time. Smoke irritation impaired lungs, yet remained an unavoidable heating trade-off, as incomplete combustion filled interiors, degrading health while providing essential warmth, light, and cooking capacity daily. Seasonal darkness increased fire reliance, amplifying fuel shortages across villages, as lighting, heating, and cooking demands overlapped continuously throughout the long winter months, each year regionally. Community cooperation eased shortages through shared labor and resources locally, spreading risk, redistributing fuel, and supporting households when individual supplies failed during harsh winter periods repeatedly. Standardized building knowledge spread through observation, not plans, within communities, as repeated exposure taught proportions, materials, sequences, and layouts, proven effective against persistent winter conditions. Locally, incremental improvements accumulated slowly across generations under repeated winter stress, favoring tested solutions while discouraging experimental designs that risked catastrophic failure during extreme seasonal cold events. Failures taught limits of materials under sustained cold conditions locally, reinforcing cautious construction practices and conservative use of timber, clay, thatch, and labor resources over time. Cottages represented compromise between warmth, durability, and labor investment required, balancing immediate survival needs against long-term maintenance, repair, and available workforce capacity within rural households seasonally. Every structural choice reflected fuel scarcity and climatic pressure constantly, shaping dimensions, materials, proportions, and layouts according to winter's dominant environmental constraints faced annually by peasants. Heat retention remained the primary metric guiding domestic decisions through winter, outweighing comfort, aesthetics, convenience, and personal preference in daily peasant life under constraint conditions continually. Peasant cottages functioned as survival machines rather than comfortable homes, optimized to reduce heat loss, manage scarcity, and endure prolonged environmental stress across repeated winter cycles. Comfort was secondary to endurance under seasonally imposed environmental constraint, accepted as necessary sacrifice to preserve life through repeated winters, shortages, illness, and material limits combined. Winter living demanded constant negotiation with cold physics inside cottages, balancing conduction, convection, radiation, moisture, and human metabolism within fragile wooden enclosures every freezing season endured. Material limits shaped behavior as much as architecture during winter, dictating movement, rest, cooperation, routines, and social organization within enclosed domestic spaces under seasonal constraint pressures. These systems prioritized survival through cumulative marginal gains over time, where small efficiencies collectively determined endurance across long, unforgiving winters without reliance on single solutions alone. Wooden cottages persisted because adaptations met minimum needs under pressure, offering sufficient shelter without exceeding material, labor, fuel, or ecological limits imposed by winter conditions locally. Failure meant exposure, hypothermia, or starvation without alternatives during winter, reinforcing risk-averse construction, cautious planning, and conservative daily decision-making within vulnerable rural households each cold season. Thus, design conservatism dominated rural building traditions across medieval Europe, favoring repetition over innovation in climates defined by cold, scarcity, uncertainty, and severe seasonal extremes regularly. Change occurred slowly, constrained by risk, memory, and locally available resources, ensuring continuity rather than rapid architectural transformation across generations facing similar winter pressures year after year. Peasant cottages embodied environmental knowledge encoded materially through structure alone, transmitting survival lessons via form, proportion, and material choice, without written instruction or formal architectural theory. Winter survival depended on understanding limits, not overcoming nature itself, aligning human systems within unavoidable environmental boundaries imposed by climate, seasonality, energy, and material scarcity realities. These wooden shelters reveal human adaptation under sustained constraint conditions, shaped by physics, scarcity, risk, and accumulated experience across centuries of repeated winter exposure and survival.